Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the MLP Streaminations of Season 1, Episode 23. This is the episode in which the Cutie Mark Crusaders are trying to get their Cutie Marks and decide, you know what, why don't we go talk to people? And they'll be able to share with us how they got theirs, and thus we'll be able to go ahead and learn how to get ours better. Then we learn how all of the main 6 got their Cutie Marks, and it turns out all of them are connected. The end. Hi, Kay. Where's my sword so I can stab? So. I'm still in the Star Wars robes. Mostly because they're right here and I didn't have time to change because I was dealing with some other stuff. But yeah. Anywho. So this episode sucks. It's the worst episode. Vomit, death, and toxicity. Actually, before we go any forward, yes, you did, Kay. We need to voot. So I'm going to leave this voot up for today. So everyone watching these live, please go ahead and voot. Please. And thank you. It's exactly what it sounds like. Do you want the music off, which is what we'll be doing for several weeks, or do you want the music back on like this, which is what we used to do and do for every other stream we do? So that's up to you. Let me know what you think. Now, I like this episode, for real, this time. No polling or joking or whatever. It's a good episode in my opinion. Music, yes. No music. Like, do you want music, yes or no? It's a really simple question. Music or no? Yes or no? Binary. Anywho's, what was I saying? I was talking about this episode. I do like this episode. Although I do have to admit, I'm curious. Can someone stab Ventures for me, please? I'm curious how Spike knows about ziplining. Like, how exactly is that a thing that he's into? Maybe he's just into stuff, like you know, extreme sports stuff on the side. I do have to admit, this is, so far the Cutie Mark Crusaders don't bother me, and that makes sense given where we're at in the story. But it is the next logical step. They have to go and ask the ponies in town about how exactly they got their Cutie Marks. Therefore, they will now know the truth about how to get their own Cutie Marks. It makes perfect sense, right? I do also like how both Apple Bloom and Sweetie Belle automatically and immediately presume that when they're speaking of the coolest pony in town, they're talking about their sisters. Just a nice little tidbit there. So, they get covered in tree sap. Why would you want a Cutie Mark in zip lining? Anyways, so we're going to kind of go through this in order. I have some thoughts about the whole construction of the episode that I want to save for last, if that's okay. First thing we see is Fortnite. No, the first thing we see is Manhattan. Applejack. Oh, yeah, here's how I got mine. We also find out about the Orange family, which is connected to the Apple family, which is funny because the Apple family is also connected to the Pear family. Huh. Anywho, so this is the first time we actually see Manhattan. Very brief glimpse, but we'll actually be going to Manhattan in multiple future episodes. In fact, I think it's one of the most frequently visited spots outside of the main 2, right off the beginning. So, cool. As usual, in this show, the rich and snobby are portrayed as rich and snobby. In fact, if anything, it's actually the exception when the rich and snobby are decent people. There's the one guy whose name I actually can't think of off the top of my head. The guy in Canterlot, the guy who always talks like this. I can't think of his name. He's one of the only decent ones. And yeah, Fancy Pants, that's him. And then there's, of course, Filthy Rich, who's actually a pretty cool guy, even if his wife is terrible. So, you know, there's that too. But I think that's it. Those are the only 2 exceptions that I can actually think of off the top of my head of rich people being shown as being decent. You'll notice they were willing to mock her just for the very idea of being woken up by a rooster. What in the world is a rooster? Fleur-de-Lis, isn't she from Harry Potter? Anywho, so, you know, I feel really badly for Applejack in that one. Yeah, I know, right, Sean? This is why it's the Pokemon thing. This setting is totally cool because there's a child can just walk into New York City and be fine. Anyways, so I feel really bad for Applejack here because I know exactly what it feels like to have very, very strict requirements being placed upon you as far as how you behave as a child. I've told you guys before how I had to receive a lot of training in how to eat what, when, and where. In fact, I think I talked about that during a Streamination for MLP. And that was when I was pretty young. So I totally feel for her there. And she finally gets to her room and saying, oh, at long last. Wait, there's a rainbow leading home. Woo! And she rushes home. I actually feel bad for the oranges. They did offer to bunker up, and she was there for an uncertain amount of time. But anyways, rushes home, gets her cutie mark. Notice no flash or style. She just gets her cutie mark. I don't know if that should be taken as read, because I've noticed that people getting their cutie marks tend to vary in the exact visual presentation they show periodically. And if I'm to be honest, I would probably go ahead and say that that's just because of inconsistency in visual design, not because of any in-lore reasons. Nevertheless, I agree with Savicom. The defining moment was, I'm starving, and they put out the food that the rich people eat, and it's much less food. I don't know about you guys, but I prefer a full tub of carrots rather than one carrot. Anywho. So then, I love how Sweetie Belle and Apple Bloom are like, oh, it's so sweet. And then, of course, Scootalow's like, ugh, bleh, gross, sappy. How many of you have known kids like that? How many of you know adults like that? I'm fine with being sappy. I'm a total sap, by the way. I like cute things. I like adorable things. What do you want from me? Fluttershy jumps in the way to be like, no, stop! And she does this for some reason. And I like how Fluttershy is once again capable of manning up, so to speak, when the need requires for it to take care of the things. You'll notice in the flashback, Fluttershy is noticeably visually older than the other ponies there. Now, we could look into that as much as we want. Maybe she was held back a year because of her problems with flying. Maybe they all go into school in groups, K through 6, rather than, just 3rd grade. But one way or another, it's actually interesting that they bothered to showcase the idea that she wasn't joking when she mentioned that she was a year older. You remember that? That was actually earlier in this very season. So anywho, Fluttershy's there. I didn't really talk about the rainbow that much because the construction of this is actually fairly well done. In the first episode, there's just a rainbow leading back home. That's like, okay, that makes sense. In the second episode, Rainbow Dash is directly connected and goes flying off. And that's about all we see, because then she plummets to her death. I wonder, if I may, how much of a problem they have in Cloudsdale with people just kind of plummeting over the edge and not being able to save themselves. Nobody comes to save Fluttershy. She would have just splattered on the ground and probably died. This is not the first time I've complained about this. Anyways, regardless of that, she ends up getting caught by butterflies and becomes Dr. Girlfriend. Yeah, they need guardrails. Or people paying attention. Just like a lifeguard, except, of the flying variety. Yeah, where's the freaking teacher? This is a school, right? Where's the teacher? Anyways. So she plummets. She's caught by butterflies. As Savicom points out, Fluttershy realizes there's nothing actually wrong with her, just where she was. Adjust location. Suddenly she fits in the puzzle piece. Then the rain boom goes off. Now, this is the first time we've actually seen the rain boom in this episode. And it's far more obviously a rain boom, but only if you're paying attention. Only if you remember the previous episode. But it is the same effect, both visually and audibly, that they used back in the Rarity episode I can't think of the name of right now, which I hate. So, actual Rain Boom goes off, and she's like, oh, well, now I have to comfort the animal scared by it. So the first one, a side effect of the Rain Boom led her towards this. In this way, a side effect of the Rain Boom led her towards her thing, and you're kind of seeing how this works here. It also, yeah, she also starts to sing, too, pretty much innately and on the spot. And the implication that she's saying in to the children as well, but that's neither here nor there. So this then leads to the Rarity section. First, we see young Rarity is complimented by the outfits she's made because they're nice. And she takes that as an insult. Boy, have I been there. How many of you have? Nice? They're only nice? God, maybe I'm Rarity of the main six. Holy crap. Anyways, so as much as I hate to complain about this, it takes forever for her to be dragged to her destiny, which actually irritates me because why did yeah, she's like, ah, and then she's just being dragged along like, all right, whatever. Let's go. But no, so she's being dragged along, and an overnight trip, we see the sun fade and then rise again. And then the now obvious Rain Boom hits, the rock cracks open, showing the gems, which fits the whole gems are everywhere concept I've talked about before, but also shows part of Rarity's overall concept of going above and beyond. Because that's really what it's about. You know, being willing to... Remember, this is something she was putting on as a show for other people. Her generosity is actually on display here. She was willing to go above and beyond in effort just to make sure that someone else's outfit was just right. This wasn't for herself. So that is still part of it. And, of course, obvious demonstration of beauty being within and blah, blah, blah. Then my favorite... Yeah, Rarity doesn't half-ass anything. Then my favorite quote of probably the entire first season happens. And I wrote down the whole quote word for word. Ugh, these namby-pamby stories aren't getting us any closer to our cutie marks. They're all about finding who you really are and boring stuff like that. So, they do a jump cut. They don't even explain how they're talking to Twilight. I love that quote. So they don't even explain how they're talking to Twilight. Now, Twilight's interesting. Because the Twilight section is by far the most fascinating of the tales here. I kind of wish they'd saved it for later. Twilight seems to be... Okay, the way they present her is that she's far more about magical knowledge and application than she is about the specific raw power. This is then immediately contradicted by Celestia directly saying, I've never encountered a pony with as much raw power as you. I'm not sure what I think of that, because we'll be discussing Twilight and the distinctions between Twilight and Starlight, much later. Because I do think there is a pretty big difference between the two ponies, even in terms of magical style. Either way, she has demonstrated, basically to use D&D terms, she's shown as being a wizard, not a sorcerer, which actually makes perfect sense to me. And in fact, would kind of highlight the whole point. But I'm getting off topic, so let's get back to this. So this, so of course we go to Princess Celestia's school for gifted unicorns. Ha ha ha. I also do like how her power basically manifests straight out of, the X-Men style of, I mean, I can't have been the only person thinking Jean Grey there, right? Oh, there you go. Someone said it in chat right as I was saying it. I do agree Twilight is a powerhouse. I'm not trying to say she isn't, but I've always had the impression that Starlight has more raw power. But Starlight her approach is far more about modifying rather than utilizing. But I don't want to get into that discussion yet. We'll talk about Starlight when she shows up. Jean Grey, oh my god. If Twilight is Jean Grey, what's Starlight? Phoenix. I'm kind of kidding. So anyway, her power manifests, that's cool. I do have to say, Celestia, first of all, doesn't even look the beginning of surprised. Like, not even a little bit. She's just like... And just walks right in like, yep, okay. I am not weird, Shadow. I am me. I really love the way it works, because this is actually the critical point for me. She's failing consistently, constantly, and she's straining, trying to force it to happen, and it won't happen because it doesn't fit until the rain broom goes off. And then all of a sudden, all of her power manifests in so much of a way that she has difficulty actually controlling it. I'm actually going to circle back around to that point, but this is why I say she really should have been last, because that's kind of a conclusory point to one of the main themes of the episode, which I'll get to later. But I want to point this out because unlike everyone else got their power because the rain boom broke the rock, or she was knocked off the thing and then the rain boom startled the people, or the rain boom led a rainbow to home, or, as we'll see in a minute, the rain boom caused a rainbow, or, she caused the rainbow. All of them have something that was basically a consequence of the rainbow. Twilight was the only one who directly was influenced by the rainbow. There's no startled. It's not like she got startled and magical dust fell onto her or something. No, it's just the very existence of the rainbow and its connecting points is what made her manifest. I read something, and I don't know how true this is, that the normal test is far more mundane and easy than this. And Celestia specifically set up Spike because she had a hunch, basically, about Twilight. I don't know how true that is, though. That would be off-camera truth, if it is true. So, anywho, this cuts to Pinkie. Where was Maud? I actually double-checked just to make sure Maud wasn't present. Where the heck is Maud? Anyways, we saw, Limestone and... I don't remember the other one's name. But we don't see... Whatever. Maud is, of course, the real pony that I am. Other than Rarity. Marble, thank you. Limestone and Marble. Oh, yeah, I actually wrote down Pinkie's Pie. Pinkamena Diane Pie. That actually amused me tremendously. So, no talking. No smiling. Only rocks. Then she sees the rainbow. And this is fascinating, because this is probably one of the better insights into Pinkie's personality we get in Season 1. It makes her smile, and she wants two things immediately out of that. Number one, she wants to keep smiling, and number two, she wants to share those smiles with other people. I want you to imagine for a moment, if you can. I want you to imagine if there's anything in your life that you are regularly and repeatedly denied for years, and then all of a sudden you are then gifted that which you have been denied, and you suddenly just never want to go without that. You never want to be in a state where you have to go without that again, because that's exactly where Pinkie's at. Now, I actually deliberately brought this out here because I wanted to make a point here. See these? These are Oreos. I know what you're thinking. Oh, no wonder you're so fat. First of all, screw you. But second of all, sweets cheer me up. Not eating them, having the availability of eating them, because I've literally been starving in my life. More than once. Knowing that I have, this will probably go bad before I eat it. I'll try to push through it. But anyways, knowing that I have a thing of Oreos here that I can eat is a tremendous comfort to me, because I never have to think, oh God, I'm starving again. I never have to be back in that state. Make sense? So this is a nice insight into the way Pinkie approaches things going forward, and why she tries so hard, so constantly. She doesn't want to ever be back there. Who could blame her? And she doesn't want anyone else to be back there either. As usual, Pinkie is one of the more interesting characters to delve into in this show, which is funny considering how they're presented, but anyways. So then she sets up the party. And of course, again, she wants to share that happiness. It's not just about her. She wants to share it with other people. I love the things where everyone's like, smile. That was actually really neat. That made me grin. So, oh God, imagine being ignorant to the concept of joy. Yeah. So Pinkie's like, oh, she's totally gonna be at Sugar Cube Corner. Funnily enough, Rainbow actually was at Sugar Cube Corner. What's funny is Rainbow's thing is actually far more simple than the others. She loves going fast. She loves pushing herself. She loves striving to be the best that she can, and she loves winning. It's actually fairly simple, but it does help to explain her in quite a bit, in quite an extensive nature to say it in such manner. So Rainbow, the boom goes off. She gets her cutie mark, yay. I love how everyone only now figures out their connection. I mean, several of the ponies have known each other before this, right? You'd think that at least Fluttershy would have shared this tale at one point or another, but whatever. So there's a big sappy hug. Aww. I love it. And Scootaloo's like, ugh, come on, let's go try the zipline again. And then she gets tackled by a hug, and then Fluttershy's like, hey, who wants a song? No! I have to admit, that made me grin. I have one last thing I want to talk about, but before we get to that, I do like the message. Regardless of the relevance in-universe, which is separate, the real-life application is actually, in my opinion, and this is only opinion, not fact, something that is very valid. Just because you're alone now doesn't mean you always will be. With the sheer variety and number of people we have in the world right now, I can almost guarantee that there are people out there right now who want to be your friend. You may never meet them, but then again, you might. And I bet if several of you think about how you first met people that you consider good friends, and how coincidental those happenstances tend to be, you can kind of see the overall message there. It's a nice little point, at least I think so. Exactly. I'm not real and I am inferior, Savacom. Wait. I guess this isn't really text-based. Whatever. You get the idea. But now I want to talk about the thing that I find most fascinating about this episode. Obviously, I love this episode. It's touching. It's friendly. It's got a good message. It's got good continuity. Several of these events will be referenced later, actually. But this was the episode that really made me think about my theory of what I call the harmonic frequency. What they refer to in universe as harmony. Just a straight up harmony. The idea here being that a lot of puzzle pieces had to be moved into the right position so that the right people could be impacted in the right ways by these events in order to allow everything to follow a neat, smooth pattern. This will actually come up much later in a season-ending episode about suicide. But before we get there, it gets across, again, the idea that, and I've talked about this before, that it's not so much fate or destiny as it is, this is where you fit because of who you are. Not because of who you must be, not because of who you are designed to be, but because of who you actually are of your own volition. This is, of course, the whole point of the cutie marks in a nutshell, isn't it? It's not about, aha, I was born to be such and such. It's about realizing who you actually are internally and using that realization and coming to the self-actualization of blah, 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 blah. But more to the point, that Twilight one really stuck with me because her power didn't manifest until a connecting point of friendship existed. She was, the episode consistently shows that she was barely able to do anything magic-wise, that she couldn't even cast a simple spell until the harmonic frequency of the other 5 connected, at which point magic was literally manifested because friendship is literally magic. Just an interesting thing to think about. And again, probably the biggest piece of evidence I have for my entire harmonic frequency theory in a nutshell. Yeah, if you think about it, because as I mentioned earlier, and I've tried to point this out, everyone else was affected by something, for lack of a better way to put it, mundanely. The impact of the shockwave cracking the rock in half, or the sound startling the animals. All of those things were direct applications, mundane applications. But this is a linear and actual consequence of friendship connecting. Basically, the formula was completed, and as soon as it was, she went from being a 0 to being a 256, to extend the metaphor a little bit here. And I love that. I love the way that's presented. Either way, that's actually all I got for this episode. Do you think this one ends on a wah-wah? I'm not sure it does. This one kind of really dances the line for me. I mean, yeah, there's the Scootaloo thing, but then the episode keeps going for a bit. And then, yeah, you know, Jack's like, "No, you're totally." I don't think this one qualifies personally. Yeah, that's true, Athel. This episode does explain why Rarity doesn't care for the or excuse me, why Applejack doesn't care for the high culture thing. As I've said before, Rarity is, however, the Klingon, that is to say, the Worf of the high society. So, and thankfully, Applejack had the chance to actually understand and explore that, as she does. I'm going to check the results here. Make sure you vote if you have not voted. I only have 14 votes. I am, of course, however, going to be leaving it up for, you know, the next episode. So you've got probably another 40, 50 minutes to vote. If you haven't, here's a relink in chat on the off chance you missed that. Otherwise, I'm going to go ahead and chop off the local recording.